When my fingers touch the rough stone, I remember how it all began. 52 years ago, I picked up a geological hammer for the first time, and since then, rocks have been my salvation. Even now in my 74th year, I continue to collect them, although expeditions are a thing of the past. My shelves are filled with specimens, silent witnesses of a life lived. I sit in a worn armchair by the window. Beyond it is the dreary landscape of Billings, a town that has never been my home. Yvonne and I moved here 12 years ago to be closer to Nolan. It seemed like the right thing to do then. Now I'm not so sure. Yvonne passed away 5 years ago. Cancer didn't stand a chance. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. 47 years together and then nothing. Sometimes I wake up and for a moment I forget she's gone. I reach for her side of the bed. It's cold. Nolan came to the funeral. He stood in the cemetery for an hour, offered his condolences, and flew back. Urgent business at the office. His wife, Heather, didn't even show up. A cold, Nolan said, but I could see the truth in his eyes. Heather had never liked Yvonne, and Yvonne had never pretended to approve of her son's choices. I sigh and rise from my chair. My joints remind me of themselves, a memory of long days in the mountains of Montana. I walk over to the shelf and pick up a small piece of striped agate. Yvonne gave it to me on my wedding day. It's durable, she said, like our love. Naive, but she believed it, and so did I. My son doesn't think so. For Nolan, love is measured by the square footage of a house and the balance in an account. He was once a dreamy boy who delighted in my stories about rocks and geologic eras, but university changed him, and meeting Heather Loring completed the transformation. The phone rings so infrequently that its trill makes me wince. My son's name comes up on the display. My heart skips a beat. Nolan only calls for important occasions. Hey, Dad. His voice sounds unnaturally cheerful. How's it going? I'm living it up, I answer. Something happened. There's a short pause. I can almost see him gathering his thoughts, choosing his words. I've been offered a promotion. I'm now the deputy CFO. Congratulations, I say sincerely. Despite our differences, I'm proud of his accomplishments. It's a great achievement. Yes, I hear the smugness in his voice. We're having a small dinner this Saturday. Heather insisted I invite you. Heather insisted? That's weird. She usually does everything she can to keep me out of their flawless world. This is very, unexpected. Her parents and her brother and his wife will be there, Nolan continues. It starts at 6. I'll be there, I promise, knowing full well that it's going to be an agonizing evening. Thank you for inviting me. And Dad, his voice becomes strained, please wear something decent. After the conversation, I sit looking at my phone for a long time. Something decent, like I was going to show up in work overalls from an expedition. Heather Loring, a girl from a good family, as she likes to emphasize. Her father owns a chain of jewelry stores throughout the Northwest. When Nolan brought her to meet us, she looked around our modest home with an expression as if she were in a museum of primitive man. How nice, she said, studying my mineral collection. You collect pebbles. Pebbles. 300 specimens, each with a history, each mined on expeditions, some unique to their deposits. To her, just pebbles. Nolan met her at a charity event he attended for work. 3 months later, he announced their engagement. 6 months later, a country club wedding. Yvonne was starting to get sick, but we showed up. We sat at a far table, among distant relatives and colleagues who'd been invited for the masses. I saw Nolan avoid us all evening. After the wedding, our meetings became infrequent and awkward. Piper's birth 7 years ago briefly revitalized the relationship. Yvonne tried to connect with her daughter-in-law to no avail. After her death, Heather completely cut her family off from me. Only Piper, sweet Piper with her inquisitive nature and her open smile. She's so much like the little Nolan I remember. Sometimes they bring her over to my place, every 2 or 3 months for a couple hours. I show her my collection, tell her about the stones, the mountains, how the earth has been creating its treasures for millions of years. She listens with bated breath, asking questions. At times like this, it seems to me that a piece of me lives in her, that spark of curiosity that Nolan once lost. The last time they brought her in was 3 months ago. Heather had rushed her, saying they had a lot to do, that Piper needed piano lessons. and the girl clung to my arm and whispered, "I want to stay with Grandpa." Heather pulled her away, throwing me an annoyed look, as if I were to blame for my own granddaughter's attachment. I walk over to the closet and open the door. "What do you mean, decent?" "I have a navy blue suit I wore to Yvonne's funeral. It's been hanging here untouched ever since. Next to it is a gray jacket I bought for the geology department's anniversary 3 years ago. I think that's enough for a family dinner." At the bottom of the closet is a box of cufflinks, Yvonne's present for our 40th. Silver with little Labrador inlays. "So you'll always remember your calling," she said then. I closed the closet and returned to the window. It's getting evening. The windows are lit up in the house across the street. People coming home from work. The ordinary life of ordinary people. I used to have one too. Work, home, family. Now it's just rocks and memories. The thought of dinner is unsettling. What is Heather up to? She usually makes sure I don't show up at their family events. Now all of a sudden she insists on inviting me? Something's not right. Maybe I should just say no. Make up some illness, meeting, whatever. Save myself a few hours of strained smiles and empty conversations. And then I think of Piper. Her eyes when she sees me. Her joy. It's worth enduring an evening among strangers who look at me like I'm a relic. I grab a simple frame photo from the table. Piper last Christmas, with the gift I gave her. A small collection of minerals for beginners. Heather wasn't happy. Those dirty rocks again. But Piper clutched the box to her chest and wouldn't let go all evening. It was decided. I'm going to this dinner. I'll wear something decent. I'll be nice to Heather's relatives. I'll put up with their condescending looks and inappropriate questions about why I still live alone in such a terrible apartment. All this for a few minutes with Piper. I put the photo down and walk over to the bookshelf. Among the geology reference books and atlases, I find a children's book about minerals. Colorful, with simple explanations and bright illustrations. A perfect gift for an inquisitive 7-year-old girl. I bought it a month ago, hoping Nolan would bring Piper back. He didn't. I'm taking her to dinner. See her eyes light up. It's worth all the unpleasantness that awaits me at my son's house. Saturday night suddenly doesn't seem so bleak. I am, after all, a geologist. I'm used to difficult routes and unfriendly landscapes. Dinner at the Loring-Whitfield house is just another expedition into inhospitable terrain. But there, among the cold rocks of social convention, a treasure awaits me. My granddaughter's smile. I straighten my back and tuck the book into my bag. "Well, Chester, get ready for Saturday. It won't be easy, but you'll get through it. You always have." Nolan's house is located in a part of Billings where people who think they deserve the best live. A 2-story mansion with columns at the entrance and immaculately trimmed bushes along the driveway. My son once made fun of houses like this. "Everything's on display," he used to say. "It's empty inside." I pull my old Ford over to the curb. The neighbors must be cringing at the sight of this rarity among their Lexuses and Mercedes. It hasn't bothered me in a long time. I grab a book for Piper from the passenger seat and a gift bag with a bottle of whiskey for Nolan. It's nothing special, but it's not customary to come empty-handed. I hesitate at the front door before I ring the bell. I check to see if the tie I'd last worn to my wife's funeral was in order. The gray jacket is a little tight. I've gained a little extra weight in 5 years. What can you do when you're retired? You can only move so much between the kitchen and the chair. Heather opens the door. A shadow of irritation flickers across her face, quickly replaced by a strained smile. "Chester." She never calls me Dad, or at least Mr. Whitfield. Just Chester, as if I were a distant acquaintance best forgotten about. "You're here." "As promised," I replied, handing her the bouquet of flowers I'd bought on the way over. "Congratulations to Nolan on his promotion." She takes the flowers with her fingertips, as if they might stain her flawless manicure. "Come on in. Everyone's still gathering." The lobby of the house shines. Everything about it screams money. The marble floor, the crystal chandelier, the antique table with a vase of orchids on it. There used to be pictures here, but they're gone now. I suspect I was in them, and Heather decided to remove these inappropriate decor elements before the guests arrived. "Grandpa!" Piper's ringing voice breaks the tense silence. She rushes out from the back of the house, her blonde hair in a high ponytail, and a smile on her face that could melt any ice. My granddaughter rushes to me, wrapping her arms around my waist, nuzzling my cheek. I knew you'd come. Mommy said you were too busy, but I knew it. I feel Heather tense up. Her lie is exposed so simply, childlike directness. I hug Piper, noticing that she's wearing a simple plaid dress and sneakers, an outfit clearly not approved by her mother for a formal dinner. Of course I came, I say, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo from her hair. How could I miss an event like this? Piper? Heather's voice rings with barely contained irritation. I told you to wear the dress we bought last week. It's not appropriate clothing for dinner. I feel my granddaughter flinch in my arms. Her smile fades. But I'm not comfortable in that dress, she protests quietly. It prickles. I don't care if it prickles or not. Heather takes her daughter by the shoulder. We talked about this. Go change your clothes now. And comb your hair properly. What's that tail? She literally pulls Piper away from me and pushes her toward the stairs. Hurry up! The guests are about to arrive. Piper gives me a guilty look and slowly makes her way upstairs, her slumped shoulders red defeat. I want to say something, to intercede, but I know it will only make things worse. I'll be careful tonight, for Piper's sake. The bar is in the living room, Heather says, heading into the kitchen with my bouquet. Nolan will be down shortly. I walk into the living room, a spacious room with panoramic windows and furniture that looks too new to sit on comfortably. On the walls are abstract paintings and expensive frames. I wonder if Nolan really understands modern art or just bought what the designer recommended. I stop at the bar looking at the bottles. Whiskey, cognac, expensive wines, all designed to impress. I pour myself some whiskey and go to the window. Dad, Nolan enters the room, and I almost don't recognize my own son. His expensive suit fits perfectly. His hair is styled with gel, and he's wearing a Swiss watch that's probably worth as much as my annual pension. He looks successful, confident, but something in his eyes has changed. Gone is the mischievous sparkle that Yvonne loves so much. Glad you could make it, he says, shaking my hand. Formal, like a business associate. Congratulations on your promotion, I say, holding out a gift bag. It's nothing fancy, but maybe you'll like it. Nolan looks into the package and smiles, for the first time genuinely. Thank you. I'll put it in my collection. Collection. He has a collection of high-end liquor now. My son, who used to collect rocks and insects, now collects whiskey and ties. How are you? He asks, but there's no real interest in his voice. It's just a courtesy. Fine, I answer briefly. The usual. There is an awkward pause. We stand side by side, father and son, and we have nothing to say to each other. We used to talk for hours. About geology, about future expeditions, about his dreams of becoming an explorer like me. Now there's a gulf between us that can't be filled with small talk. Listen, Nolan lowers his voice, glancing toward the kitchen. Heather's parents are coming over tonight. They're conservative about certain things. And you're afraid I'll embarrass you? I ask bluntly, taking a sip of whiskey. No, of course not, he looks embarrassed. Just don't mention your expeditions to South America, okay? And don't discuss politics either. I nod, feeling the bitterness building inside. My son is ashamed of my past, my work, my views. Don't worry, I say dryly. I'll only talk about the weather. Nolan looks grateful. This hurts more than his shame. The doorbell rings, interrupting our conversation. Nolan hurriedly steps aside to greet the new guests. I remain at the window, clutching my whiskey glass. I look out at the immaculate front lawn and remember how Nolan and I once camped out in the backyard of our old house. All night I'd tell him about the constellations, and he'd fall asleep to my stories of distant galaxies. Piper walks into the living room, and I can barely hold back a sigh. She's wearing a navy blue dress with a lace collar now, her hair done up in an elaborate updo with hairpins. She looks like a miniature version of Heather, flawless but miserable. Hi, baby, I call to her, and she walks over timidly. You're very pretty. Thank you, she whispers, rubbing her collar. It's prickly, Grandpa. I know, I answer quietly, but sometimes you have to endure discomfort for the sake of others. Why? She asks, and there is genuine incomprehension in her eyes. Does it matter what I wear? She's wise beyond her years. just like Yvonne. For some people, yes, I explain, squatting down to be at her eye level. But you know what? It's not what's on the outside that matters. It's what's on the inside. She smiles and I can see that one of her front teeth is missing. That little imperfection makes her even more charming against the forced flawlessness. I brought you something, I say, pulling a book on minerals from the inside pocket of my jacket. Her eyes go wide in the very expression on her face that I've been willing to endure all evening for. Oh, Grandpa, she gingerly picks up the book. It's about stones. Exactly, I confirm with a smile. There are pictures and descriptions. I thought we could... What do you got there? Heather's sharp voice interrupted our moment. Piper flinches and hides the book behind her back. Nothing, she answers quickly. Too fast. Heather walks over and pulls the book out of her daughter's hands. It's those rocks again. She looks at me with poorly concealed irritation. Chester, we talked about this. Piper needs to focus on ballet and piano, not on... She wrinkles her nose. Geology. Picks up the book and puts it on the mantelpiece. Too high for Piper to reach. We'll come back to this later, I promised my granddaughter quietly as Heather turns away to adjust the flowers in the vase. From the street comes the sound of a car pulling up. Heather immediately transforms, her back straight, a smile on her face, her eyes shining with fake enthusiasm. My parents are here, she announced. Piper, go say hello to your grandparents, and remember your manners. The girl nods obediently and heads for the door. Her shoulders are still tense, but she puts on a smile that looks so much like her mother's. Fake, rehearsed. A moment later, Heather's parents enter the living room. Alfred Loring is a tall man with silver temples and a commanding gaze. Veronica is a petite woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a face that doesn't show a single emotional wrinkle. Either she's perfectly happy or she regularly visits a plastic surgeon. My money's on the latter. Mr. Whitfield, Alfred approaches me with his hand outstretched. His handshake is a show of strength. It's good to see you again. How are you doing in your, neighborhood? Fine, I answer, holding his gaze. It's nice and quiet. Yes, I've heard, he smiles, but his eyes remain cold. The security in those neighborhoods leaves a lot to be desired, though. Maybe you should consider moving. I could recommend a couple good options. Thank you, but I'm comfortable where I live, I say, trying to remain calm. Whatever you say, he shrugs and walks back to the bar. Veronica barely graces me with a nod. She finds her granddaughter right away and starts examining her like she's looking at merchandise in a window. Nice dress, she says, adjusting Piper's collar. But you need to watch your posture, dear. Lower your shoulders, straighten your back. That's it. Piper obediently follows the instructions, turning into a small porcelain statue. The doorbell heralds the arrival of the last of the guests. It's Heather's brother, Quentin, and his wife, Serafina. Quentin is a younger version of his father, only with a more smug expression on his face. Serafina is a model or actress, judging by her looks and the way she moves, as if she's constantly in front of the camera. Quentin made a deal with the Japanese last week, Alfred announces proudly, patting his son on the shoulder. 20 million. Well done, my boy. Nothing special, Dad, Quentin replies with feigned modesty. Just the right way to negotiate. And Nolan got a promotion? Heather reminds him, not wanting to be overshadowed by her brother. He is now the deputy CFO. Oh yes, Alfred turns his gaze to my son. Congratulations, Nolan. When will you become director? In a year or two, I think, Nolan answers with a confidence that seems fake to me. First, you have to show results in your new position. Of course, Alfred nods. You've always been an ambitious guy. That's good. You can't be ambitious these days. Everyone moves to the dining room, where the table is set. Crystal glasses, silverware, porcelain plates, all indicative of a desire to impress. I'm seated at the far end of the table, next to Piper. It's the only consolation. Dinner begins with a discussion of the real estate market. Alfred has recently purchased another house for investment. Quentin talks about his new yacht. Serafina brags about her trip to Paris for Fashion Week. Nolan talks about his prospects at the company. Heather discusses plans with her mother for a kitchen remodel. I eat in silence, glancing occasionally at Piper, who picks at her food without much enthusiasm. She's not part of the conversation either. She's not asked, and she doesn't try to get a word in edgewise. What did you think of the last election? Quentin suddenly turns to me, and there is silence at the table. I prefer not to discuss politics at dinner, I replied diplomatically. Come on, he insists with a chuckle. Surely you have an opinion. People of your generation are said to be very conservative. Quentin, Nolan begins warningly, but Heather's brother doesn't stop. I'm just wondering. After all, Mr. Whitfield is a geologist, a scientist. Surely he has something to say about climate change and climate policy. That's it. They want to drag me into an argument, make me look retrograde, make fun of my views. I can feel Nolan tensing up. He's afraid I'll speak up and ruin the evening. I do have an opinion, I say calmly, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to celebrate my son's success. Quentin looks disappointed. He was hoping for a confrontation. Boring, he says, leaning back in his chair. I thought we could argue. Not everyone enjoys arguing over dinner, Heather remarks, giving her brother a warning glance. The conversation turns to the city news, but I notice Quentin occasionally glancing at me with a chuckle. He's looking for a way to provoke, to find a weakness. By the way, Mr. Whitfield, Veronica turns to me with fake interest. Heather tells me you've spent your whole life on expeditions? That must have been unusual. Not my whole life, I answer, noticing Nolan tense up. But I did travel a lot for work. What was it like living in such primitive conditions? She looks at me as if I were an exhibit in a museum. It was fascinating, I say simply, and good for science. But your wife and son, they've suffered from your absence, she continues, and I see the look of discomfort on Nolan's face. There it is. They know where to hit. My family did fine, I reply, trying to remain calm. Yvonne has always supported my work. How noble of her. Veronica smiles, but her eyes remain cold. Not every woman is willing to sacrifice her family life for her husband's career. It was our choice, I say, feeling the anger boiling up inside. Yvonne and I were a team. Of course, she waves it off, signaling that she doesn't believe a word of it. I glance at Nolan. He's looking down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. Does he really think I was a bad father too? That my job ruined our family? I want to ask him, but not here. Not now. Not in front of these people who are enjoying my discomfort. Heather deftly turns the conversation to another topic. The upcoming charity ball her mother is throwing. The tension subsides a bit, but I sense it's just the lull before another attack. After the main courses, Heather gets up from the table. I'll get tea and dessert, she announces, heading for the kitchen. She returns a minute later with a tea set on a silver tray. Piper, she said to her daughter in a tone that brooked no objection. Help me with the tea for the guests. The girl flinches but stands up obediently. Heather puts the tray on the table. Spread the tea neatly, just like I taught you, she instructed, and I could see her shoulders tense. And don't forget to ask who wants sugar and who doesn't. Piper nods, her face serious, almost frightened. She walks over to the tray and hesitantly picks up the teapot. It's clearly heavy for her small hands. Why don't I help? I offer, but Heather quickly shakes her head. Piper has to learn, she cuts her off. All the girls in our family know how to serve tea by the age of 7. It's tradition. Veronica nods approvingly. That's right. A girl should know how to host. Piper starts pouring tea, moving from one guest to the next. Her hands are trembling slightly and sweat drips from the strain on her forehead. Do you want sugar? She asks quietly, approaching Quentin. Without, he answers without even looking at her. She pours the tea, careful not to spill a drop, and moves on to Serafina. I don't drink tea, she says coldly. It's bad for your skin. Piper hesitates, not knowing what to do next. Just let her pass, Heather commands. Go on. Her granddaughter nods and moves on to Alfred, who is drumming his fingers on the table, clearly impatient. With 2 sugars, he demands without waiting for a question. Piper picks up the sugar tongs, but they're too big for her fingers. She awkwardly grabs a piece, which slips out and falls onto the table. I'm sorry, she whispers, trying to grab the sugar again. Be careful, Heather hisses. You know how to do that. Piper finally manages the sugar and moves on to Veronica, who looks at her critically. No sugar, she says, and don't pour too much. I'm watching my figure. Piper pours the tea, but her hands shake even more. The teapot is heavy, and she can't control the flow. The tea overflows over the rim of the cup and onto the saucer. Piper, Heather exclaims indignantly. I told you to be careful. I'm sorry, Mom. The girl looks completely frightened. Keep going, Heather said. Just try not to spill all over the table. I watch as my granddaughter, who is only 7 years old, plays the role of maid at this ostentatious dinner. Her childish shoulders are tense, her lips tight, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's not right. She should be playing, laughing, being a child, not serving adults who don't even notice her efforts. Piper is the last one to approach me. She's already tired of holding the heavy kettle, and her hands are visibly shaking. Sugar for you, Grandpa? She asks quietly. As you wish, little one, I answer softly. She smiles weakly and pours my tea. Adds 1 sugar cube. She remembers that's how I like it. Thank you, Piper, I say, looking into her eyes. You're doing a great job. She nods gratefully, and for a moment there's a spark of relief in her gaze. Piper, take the kettle to the kitchen and get some dessert, Heather said. The girl obediently takes the tray and heads for the kitchen. I can see how hard it is for her to hold it, how she tries not to show that she can't bear the burden. You have a beautiful granddaughter, Alfred says to me condescendingly. Heather is doing a great job raising her. Yes, Piper is a wonderful child, I agree, not commenting on the second part of his statement. Discipline is key, he continued, sipping his tea. Kids are too spoiled these days. It's a good thing Heather has traditional values. Traditional? I asked hesitantly. Of course, Veronica joins in. A girl should know her place in the house. She should be able to manage the household, to receive guests, to be obedient. But she's only 7, I say carefully. That's why now is the time to learn, she cuts off. All the basic skills are formed at this age. I want to object, to say that at 7, children should be playing, exploring the world, developing their imagination. That there's a difference between teaching responsibility and using a child as a servant. But I bite my tongue. I promised myself to be careful today. Piper returns with a large platter with a cake on it. The platter is clearly too heavy for her, and she can barely hold it in her outstretched arms. Her face is strained from the effort. She walks slowly around the table, trying not to hurt anyone. As she passes Quentin, he suddenly pushes back his chair without looking back. Piper doesn't have time to react and trips over the chair leg. It's like time slows down. I see her struggling to keep her balance as the cake dish begins to tilt, her eyes widening in horror. And then disaster strikes. The cake slips off the platter and falls straight onto the expensive tablecloth. The creamy mass spreads across the snow-white fabric, forming an ugly brown stain. There is a moment of deafening silence. Piper stands frozen with the empty dish in her hands, her face whiter than chalk. Everyone stares at the ruined tablecloth without saying a word. And then Heather jumps up from her seat. Piper! She yells, her voice ringing with rage. What did you do? Yup, I didn't mean to, she whispers, her lips trembling. I tripped. Ah, you always say that. Heather walks over to her daughter, snatches the dish out of her hands and sets it on the table. Always making excuses for your clumsiness. That tablecloth cost $500. Heather, calm down. Nolan tries to intervene, but his voice sounds unconvincing. It's just a tablecloth. Just a tablecloth? She turns to her husband. Do you realize how much it cost? And how we look in front of the guests? Piper stands with her head down, her shoulders shaking with restrained sobs. I'm sorry, Mommy, she whispers. I didn't mean to. Get some tissues and start wiping right now, Heather orders. Piper rushes into the kitchen and returns with a pack of tissues. She drops to her knees next to the stain and begins frantically wiping it up. Her small hands move quickly, but to no avail. The stain only smears across the tablecloth. Not like that, Heather leans over her daughter. You're only making it worse. Didn't I teach you how to get stains out? Piper rubs even harder, but her hands are shaking so badly that she's making it worse. I'm trying, Mom. Her voice is barely audible. Try harder. Heather looms over her. And after you're done, get us all some coffee. You ruined the dessert, so at least handle the coffee. I look at my granddaughter, a little girl on her knees, head down, wiping the soiled tablecloth under the stares of the adults who are supposed to be protecting her. Something inside me breaks. Heather, I say quietly but firmly, maybe I should help. No, she says, not looking at me. It's Piper's fault, and she'll fix it herself. The girl continues to rub the tablecloth, but the stain only spreads wider. Her shoulders shake, and I realize she's crying silently. It's no use, Heather sighs. The tablecloth is ruined. We'll have to throw it away. She straightens up and looks down at her daughter. Get up and go get the coffee, she orders. And try not to spill it like you spilled the tea and dropped the cake. Piper rises from her knees. Her face is wet with tears, but she quickly wipes them away with her hand. Her birthday dress is now stained with cream and chocolate. She looks like a broken doll. Yes, Mom, she whispers and walks into the kitchen. Heather turns to her guest with a strained smile. I apologize for the incident, she says. Unfortunately, Piper is very clumsy. We're working on it. Kids, Veronica sighs understandingly. They're all so sloppy. Not all of them, Heather objects. Your Quentin was never that awkward. He had discipline, Veronica says proudly. I never let him be lazy. They continue to discuss the kids, and I glance toward the kitchen door, behind which Piper has disappeared. What is she feeling right now? Alone in tears, humiliated in front of everyone, she's making coffee for those who just watched her humiliation. I want to go after her, to comfort her, to tell her that everything will be okay, that it's not her fault, but I know that would only make things worse. Piper returns a few minutes later, carrying a tray with a coffee pot and cups. Her face still bears traces of tears, but she tries to look calm. She carefully places the tray on the table. Pour coffee for everyone, Heather commands, and pay attention this time. Piper nods and takes the coffee pot. Her hands are still shaking, but she tries to hold it together. Slowly, she walks around the table, pouring coffee for each guest. As she walks over to me, I whisper softly, It's okay, baby girl. You're doing great. She smiles weakly, but immediately takes on a serious expression again when she hears her mother yell, Piper, hurry up. Don't hold up the guests. The girl quickens her pace, but that only increases the risk of another disaster. As she pours Veronica's coffee, a few drops spill onto the saucer. Again, Heather exclaims. Shekaninam, can't you be more careful? I'm sorry, Mom. Piper looks completely exhausted. She finishes pouring the coffee and stands hesitantly, not knowing what to do next. Take the tray and get the cream and sugar, Heather commands, and then put out the cookies I made to replace the cake you dropped. Piper obediently takes the tray and goes back into the kitchen. Her shoulders slump, her gait uncertain. She looks much older than her 7 years, a small woman, crushed by the weight of expectations. You're going to have trouble with that girl when she's a teenager, Alfred remarks, sipping his coffee. Too soft. Needs a firm hand. We're working on it, Heather replies. She's taking ballet, piano, etiquette lessons. But sometimes I think she's just not trying. Genetics, Veronica says meaningfully, giving me a brief glance. At that moment, Piper returns with a new tray, with a creamer, a sugar bowl, and a plate of cookies. Pour the tea and bring the food to my relatives, Heather says sharply, and try not to drop everything this time. Something inside me finally breaks. I see Piper's face, pale and haggard, her eyes reddened with tears. I see her little hands trembling, trying to be brave, trying to please a mother who sees only flaws in her. This is my granddaughter, a little girl who should be playing and laughing, not serving haughty adults. I bang my fist on the table so hard that the cups bounce. Everyone flinches and turns to me. Stop it! My voice is louder than I expected. My granddaughter is not your maid. There is a deafening silence. Heather freezes with her mouth open, unable to believe her ears. Nolan stares at me in horror. Heather's parents exchange indignant glances. Piper stands with her tray pressed to her chest, her eyes wide. What did you say? Heather is the first to come to her senses, her voice shaking with rage. I said Piper is not a maid, I repeat firmly. She's 7 years old. She's a child, and you're making her serve adults who are perfectly capable of doing it themselves. There's a heavy silence at the table. It's like a thunderstorm. Everyone's faces are frozen in various stages of shock and outrage. Only Piper stares at me with wide-open eyes, a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Nolan is the first to come to his senses. His face is red, a vein throbbing in his neck. He clears his throat and rises from the table. "Dad," he says in a strained voice, "can I talk to you for a minute?" He nods toward the study. Without waiting for an answer, he heads for the door. I stand up slowly, casting one last glance at Piper. She stands, still clutching the tray to her chest like a shield. "It's going to be okay, baby girl," I tell her quietly before following my son. Nolan's office is the epitome of his current life. Dark paneling, a leather chair, shelves of books I'm sure he's never opened. On the wall, diplomas in expensive frames and photos of important people. Not one with his father. Nolan closes the door and turns to me. His face is contorted with anger. "What was that?" he hisses, trying not to raise his voice so the guests won't hear. "Do you realize you just made a scene in front of Heather's parents? I realize that your wife makes a 7-year-old girl serve adults like she's a servant," I answer calmly, "and when the child fails to do the impossible task, she humiliates her in front of everyone." Nolan runs his hand through his hair, disturbing the perfect style. "Dad, you don't understand. This is parenting. Piper's learning manners, learning to be a lady of the house." "Mistress?" I ask again bitterly. "Or a maid?" I saw her face, Nolan. She was terrified and humiliated. "You're exaggerating," he dismissed it. "Piper was just a little upset about her embarrassment. It's normal." "Normal?" My voice is getting harder. "Is it okay to make a kid carry heavy trays and then yell at her when she fails? Is it okay to humiliate her in front of everyone over a ruined tablecloth?" Nolan sighs with the look of a man explaining the obvious to a child with no brains. "Dad, in this environment, in this society, there are rules. Heather is raising Piper the way she was raised. In the Loring family, girls learn from childhood to run a home, to welcome guests, to be impeccable hostesses. And that justifies your daughter crying? I'm asking you straight out. Did you see her cry? How she flinched at every shout from her mother?" For a moment, Nolan's eyes flicker with something akin to doubt, but it fades quickly, replaced by irritation. "You've always been like this," he said, shaking his head. "Always thought you knew better. And look where it's gotten your life. You're alone, in a small apartment, no friends, no position in society." His words hurt more than I expected. Not because they're true, but because he really thinks they are. "And where did your pursuit of social standing lead you?" I parry quietly. "Are you happy, Nolan? Really happy in that big house, with a wife who values only status, with a father-in-law who looks at you as a good buy for the family business?" Nolan looks away, his shoulders tensing. "Don't turn this around," he says. "We're talking about your inappropriate behavior at the table." "Inappropriate?" I question him bitterly. "Protecting your granddaughter from injustice is inappropriate?" Nolan turns to me, his face hard. "Yes, inappropriate. Because it's not your daughter, it's mine. And Heather and I get to decide how she's raised. You're a guest in our home, and you have to respect our rules. Even if those rules hurt the baby." "You're being dramatic," he cut him off. "Piper is just learning responsibility. All kids go through that. I don't remember your mom and I making you serve guests when you were 7, I say calmly. I don't remember yelling at you for spilled juice or a broken cup. And look where that got us." Nolan suddenly raises his voice. "I was totally unprepared for real life. I did not know how to behave in decent society, did not know the basic rules of etiquette. I had to learn everything on my own, make my own way, because you were too busy with your rocks and expeditions to teach me anything useful." There it is, the root of all our problems. The old grudge that Nolan had carried around for years was now bursting out. "I didn't know," I said quietly. "I didn't know you felt this way." "Of course you didn't," he chuckles bitterly. "You didn't notice much besides your work. You were always away on expeditions, and when you came back, all you talked about was rocks and minerals. I needed a father to teach me how to be a man in this world, teach me how to make money, how to get respect, how to build a career." I'm silent, trying to digest what he said. Have I been so wrong all these years? It seemed to me that my son loved to hear my stories about expeditions, that he was proud of my work, that we were close. And it turns out that all this time he felt abandoned and unprepared for life. "I thought you were happy," I finally say. "I thought our home, our family, our house was full of rocks and books," Nolan interrupts. "But it lacked the things that really mattered. connections, status, and understanding of how the real world works. You lived in your imaginary world of geology, and Mom and I had to adapt. Your mom never told me she was unhappy. I object quietly. She was supportive of my work, proud of it, because she loved you. His voice softens for a moment. She always put your interests ahead of her own, and I don't want that kind of life for Piper. I don't want her to grow up unfit for reality, with a head full of fantasies about rocks and minerals and no social skills. That's a kick in the butt. I always thought I was giving my son the most valuable thing, love of knowledge, nature, science, and he saw it as an escape from reality. Is that why you let Heather treat Piper like a servant? I asked, trying to remain calm. You think it'll make her happier? It'll make her stronger, Nolan replied with conviction. Prepare her for the real world, where no one will pat her on the head and admire her every move, where you have to live up to expectations, be better than others, succeed. I look at my son, so foreign and unfamiliar, and I realize that we speak different languages. For me, success has always consisted in learning about the world, in discoveries, in love for my work. For him, it's about status, money, position in society. I can't agree with you, Nolan, I finally say. I can't watch Piper being forced to be someone she's not. Her childlike spontaneity, her curiosity, her joie de vivre. It's none of your business. His voice becomes hard again. Piper is my daughter, and I will raise her the way I see fit. If you don't like it, you don't have to come to us. Those words are like a sentence. I realize he's not kidding. That if I don't accept his rules, if I don't obey them, I'll never see my granddaughter again. You can't forbid me from seeing Piper, I say, feeling the anxiety building inside me. I can, he answered coldly. And I will if you keep interfering with our parenting. Heather already thinks you're a bad influence on Piper with your stories about rocks and nonsense. I barely got her to let you see your daughter. His words are like a slap in the face. I'm not just a guest in their house. I'm an unwanted guest, tolerated out of a sense of duty. Is that why you invited me here tonight? I ask, beginning to understand. To show Heather's parents how good you are, not forgetting her old man father, inviting him to family gatherings. Nolan averts his gaze, and I know I've hit the mark. It was Heather's decision, he says after a pause. Her parents asked about you, and she thought it would be best if they could see that we were in a relationship with you. For appearance's sake, I chuckle bitterly, to look like a good family in her parents' eyes. Nolan is silent, and that silence is more eloquent than any words. I realize I've lost my son. Not today, years ago, when he decided that my values were worthless in a world where everything is measured by money and status. I'm sorry you feel that way about our family, I say quietly, about our home, about my work. I always thought I was giving you the most valuable things, a love of knowledge, of nature, of true values. Those values don't pay the bills, he cuts off, and they don't open doors to good society. But they do make life meaningful, I object. They give you joy that no amount of money can buy. Nolan looks at me regretfully, as if I were hopelessly ill. You need to go back to the living room and apologize to everyone, he says, especially Heather. Tell them you overreacted, that you didn't mean to make a scene. I imagine going back to the table, looking these people in the eye, apologizing for defending my granddaughter. How Heather smiles triumphantly, and Piper sees that even her grandfather has given up in the face of this system. No, I can't do that. I'm sorry, Nolan. I shake my head. I won't apologize for being right. His face stiffens. Then you'd better leave, he says coldly. I'll tell the guests that you've gotten sick. Tell them the truth, I reply, heading for the door. Tell them I couldn't bear to see my grandson humiliated. I walk out of the office, leaving Nolan standing in the middle of the room. I run into Heather in the hallway. She's standing with her arms crossed over her chest, her face contorted with anger. I've heard enough, she says. You ruined our evening, embarrassed us in front of my parents. See, where's Piper? I ask, ignoring her words. None of your business, she cuts me off. You won't see her again. I won't let you influence my daughter. Fill her head with your ridiculous ideas about rocks and freedom. She is my granddaughter, I say quietly but firmly, and I will fight for the right to see her. Good luck, Heather grins. Nolan will never go against me. He knows I'm right. She steps back, letting me pass. But I stop. Piper deserves to be a kid, I say. Deserves to be happy, to play, to discover. Don't turn her into a copy of yourself, Heather. She's unique. That's why I want to spare her from the influence of people like you, she replies coldly. So she doesn't grow up a loser, living in the past among dusty rocks and books. Her words hurt, but I don't let it show. I walk past her in silence and head for the stairs, hoping to see Piper. Don't bother, Heather tosses me back. She's in her room. She'll stay there until you leave. I pause for a moment, fighting the urge to go upstairs, to hug my granddaughter, to tell her everything's going to be okay. But I realize that would only make things worse. Heather wouldn't let me see Piper, and if I tried to insist, it could lead to a bigger scandal and a permanent breakup with my son. I turn and walk toward the exit, feeling Heather's gaze on me. I pause for a moment in the hallway, casting one last glance at the stairs, hoping Piper will peek out. But the house remains silent. I step outside. It's a warm evening, but I'm chilly. I walk to my car, feeling a strange emptiness inside. As if something important, some part of me remained in that house, among the cold walls and false smiles. I get behind the wheel, but I don't start the engine. I look at the lighted windows of the house where my only granddaughter lives, where my son, who has become a stranger, lives, where a woman who thinks I'm a failure and a bad influence has power. What have I done wrong? Where did I make a mistake? Maybe Nolan is right and I haven't given him what's really important in this life? Maybe my values are outdated, and in today's world it's really more important to be socially savvy than to love nature and science? No, I can't believe that. I can't accept a world where a 7-year-old girl is forced to serve adults and then humiliated for being awkward, where an expensive tablecloth is more important than a child's tears, where status is valued over sincerity and love. I start the engine and slowly drive away from my son's house. My heart feels heavy, as if one of my stones has been placed there, cold and hard. I've lost my son, and now I risk losing my granddaughter, the only person in whom I see the continuation of myself, my love for the world, my desire for knowledge. The road home seems endless. My thoughts revolve around one thing. How do I stay connected to Piper? How do I protect her from the cold world she's growing up in? How do I keep her childlike spontaneity, her curiosity, her joie de vivre? I don't know the answers to those questions. I only know that I will not give up without a fight, that I will do everything possible to make my granddaughter know that there is a person in the world who accepts her as she is, who sees in her not a future socialite, but an amazing person with a unique view of the world. I park in front of my house, an old 5-story building that certainly can't compare to Nolan's mansion. I climb the creaky stairs to the 3rd floor and open the door of my apartment. It's quiet and empty. Books, rocks, and photographs are my only companions. I go to the window and look out over Billings at night. Somewhere out there, in a wealthy neighborhood, in a big house, my granddaughter is probably crying in her room, and there's nothing I can do to help her. Not right now, anyway. I sit down in my chair, feeling the fatigue pile up on my shoulders. A day that started with the hope of seeing Piper has ended with the breakup with my son and possibly the loss of my granddaughter. The gap between us has become, it seems, finally insurmountable. But I'm a geologist. I know that even the deepest canyons were once a whole earth, and that time and patience can smooth the sharpest rocks. Maybe all is not lost. Maybe there's still a chance to reach Nolan, to show him that true values aren't measured in money and status. In the meantime, I'm going to find a way to stay in Piper's life. I'm going to fight for the right to be her grandfather, because she deserves to know that there's another world out there, a world where she's loved simply for what she is, where there's no need to be perfect, where you can just be a kid, curious, sometimes clumsy, always sincere. With that thought, I close my eyes, letting fatigue take over. Tomorrow will be a new day, and a new battle for my granddaughter's soul. The week since that ill-fated dinner has dragged on endlessly. I've called Nolan twice, both times going to voicemail. On the 3rd day, I left a message apologizing, not because I thought I was wrong, But because I wanted to at least know how Piper was doing, I didn't get a reply. Every morning I wake up thinking about my granddaughter. What's wrong with her? Was she punished because of me? Does she remember the grandfather who never protected her? On Wednesday, I pulled boxes of mineral specimens out of the closet, the ones I collected especially for Piper. Beautiful, unusual, with stories. I spread them out on the table, remembering how her eyes lit up when she looked at my collection. Then I put them back. Who am I showing these treasures to? Myself? Friday, I go to the library, pick up some geology books for kids. The librarian smiles, thinking I'm picking them out for my granddaughter. I hesitate to say that I may never see her again. Saturday, exactly 1 week after the disaster. I sit at the window, watching the rain drumming on the eaves. The weather matches the mood. Gray, dreary, hopeless. I replay that evening in my mind, replaying the events over and over again. Could I have done anything differently? Stay silent? Pretend I didn't notice Piper's tears? Wait and talk to Nolan alone? Or would I have ended up breaking up anyway? The doorbell jolts me out of my reverie. That's odd. I'm not expecting anyone. Neighbors don't drop by unannounced. Maybe the mailman with a package? But it's Saturday. I go to the door, open it, and I can't believe it. There's Piper standing in the doorway, soaked to the skin, with her backpack behind her back, wearing a red raincoat with water dripping off it. Her blonde hair sticks to her pale face, her cheeks a mixture of raindrops and tears. But the eyes, her eyes shine with determination. "Grandpa," she exhales and rushes over to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "Piper!" At first I can only say her name in shock. "Oh my God, what happened? How did you get here?" I pull her into the apartment, closing the door against the freezing wind. She's shivering, her clothes soaking wet. "I ran away," she says simply, and there's no fear or regret in her voice, just relief. "I couldn't stay there any longer, grandfather." I squat down, taking her by the shoulders, looking into her face. Her lips are slightly blue from the cold, but the determination in her gaze hasn't faded. "Piper, do your parents know where you are?" I ask, though I'm already guessing the answer. She shakes her head. "No, they're at a charity breakfast. They left me with the babysitter, but she fell asleep in front of the TV. I took money from my mom's purse and ran away." My heart skips a beat. Jesus, a 7-year-old girl alone in the city, in the rain, with money in her pocket. Anything could have happened. "How did you get here?" I ask, already unbuttoning her wet raincoat. "I took the bus," she says proudly. "I knew the number in the stop. My mom and I drove by your house once, and she said, 'Grandpa lives here in those horrible high-rises.'" I remembered. A perceptive girl, too perceptive for her age, and too determined. "You need to change," I said, taking off her soaked raincoat. "You're shivering. Let me find something dry." I find an old t-shirt. It'll be like a dress. And a towel. I send her to the bathroom to change while I frantically figure out what to do. I should call Nolan, let him know I have Piper. They're probably freaking out with worry. Or haven't they discovered she's gone yet? That thought makes me sick to my stomach. Could they have left the baby with the babysitter and gone all day without even checking? Piper comes out of the bathroom wearing my t-shirt, which actually looks like a dress on her. Her hair is wrapped in a towel, and her cheeks are pink. She looks a little better, but she's still shivering. "Come here," I call her into the kitchen. "I'll make you some hot tea with honey. You need to warm up." She sits down at the kitchen table, dangling her feet that don't reach the floor. My old stool is too high for her. I put the kettle on, take the honey out of the cupboard, slice the bread. "Are you hungry?" I ask, and she nods vigorously. "Very. I haven't had breakfast. My mom said I've been eating too much lately, and I need to watch my figure." Anger boils up inside me. A 7-year-old is told to watch her figure? Not to eat breakfast? But I hold back. This is not the time for outrage. "Well, you can eat as much as you want at my place," I say, pulling butter, cheese, and ham out of the refrigerator. A growing body needs nourishment. I make her sandwiches, pour tea with honey, and add the cookies I keep for occasional guests. She devours the food as if she hadn't eaten in days. "Piper," I begin gently when she's a little full. "Tell me what happened. Why did you run away?" She sighs, her shoulders slumping. "Things got worse after that dinner," she says quietly. Mom was mad at me all the time. Said I'd embarrassed her in front of the family, that I was clumsy and ungrateful. And Daddy just didn't say anything. Her voice trembles, and I feel my heart clench. I want to hug her, to protect her from the world, but I know it's impossible. They forbade me to see you, she continues. Mom said that you're a bad influence on me, that because of you, I don't respect their authority. I'm sorry, baby, I say, unable to find any other words. And yesterday, her eyes fill with tears. They had guests, and Mom made me serve drinks and snacks again. I tried so hard to be careful, but I dropped the glass anyway. It didn't break, just a little juice spilled, and she sent me to my room without dinner and told me I was a disgrace to the family. Tears run down her cheeks, and she doesn't try to wipe them away. I don't want to go back there, Grandpa, she says, and there's so much desperation in her voice it takes my breath away. I don't want to be their puppet that they show to the guests. I don't want to be afraid of dropping something or saying the wrong thing all the time. I just want to just be me. I go around the table and put my arms around her. She snuggles against my shoulder, and I can feel her little body shudder with sobs. They don't even see me, she whispers through her tears. To them, I'm just a thing to be made perfect. Mommy keeps saying, stand up straight, don't hunch over, keep your voice down, don't laugh so loud, don't run, don't jump, be a lady. And I don't want to be a lady, I just want to be Piper. I stroke her head, letting her cry it out. What can I say? That everything's going to be okay? That her parents love her and will realize their mistakes? I'm not sure about that. I can't lie to her. You know what, I say when her sobs subside a little. Let's just be Piper today. No, stand up straight or be a lady. Just you and me and whatever else you feel like doing. She lifts her tear-stained eyes to me with a glimmer of hope in them. Really? I can do whatever I want? Within reason, I smile. But yes, no social manners or rules. Just fun and freedom. She wipes her tears with the sleeve of my t-shirt and smiles weakly. Can I see your rocks? She asks. The ones you collected on your expeditions? Sure, I nod. I've been sorting through my collection lately, and I've put aside some samples I wanted to show you. Her eyes light up, and I see her transform from a frightened, hunted girl to an inquisitive, lively child. I take out the boxes of minerals and set them on the coffee table in the living room. Piper sits on the couch with her legs tucked up and looks at the colorful stones with admiration. This is an amethyst from Brazil. I show her a purple crystal. See how it shimmers in the light? And this is malachite from the Congo. The pattern on it is like a forest labyrinth. She carefully takes the stones, examines them, asks questions. I tell her about geological formations, how minerals are formed, about my expeditions. She listens with bated breath, her eyes shining with delight. What's this? She asks, pointing to a small transparent stone. This is rock crystal, I explain, one of the varieties of quartz. See how clear it is? In ancient times, people believed it was made of solidified ice that never melted. Isn't it? Her eyes widen. No, of course not, I laugh. It's just a legend. It's actually formed from silicate minerals under high temperatures and pressure. Tell me more legends, she asks. I like stories about rocks, and I tell them about ancient beliefs about gemstones, about how people attributed magical properties to them, about the legends of different peoples. Piper listens, mesmerized, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just silent, absorbed in the story. Time flies by. I show her my geological maps, teach her how to identify minerals by color and hardness, tell her about my expeditions to South America, Africa, and Asia. She absorbs the information like a sponge, asking questions that surprise me with their depth. Grandpa, why did you become a geologist? She asks me when we take a break for lunch. Because I wanted to understand how the world works, I answer. Stones preserve the history of the earth. They are like the pages of an ancient book that you have to learn to read. And when you can do that, amazing stories about the past of our planet open up before you. Did Daddy like rocks when he was little? The question catches me off guard. I think about it, remembering Nolan the child. Yes, he did, I finally say. We used to go out together to look for interesting specimens. He'd build up his collection and even do little exhibitions for his friends. Then why did he stop? Her eyes look at me with bewilderment. Why did he become so boring? I don't know what to answer. How do I explain to a 7-year-old the complexity of growing up, the pressures of society, the frustrations that sometimes make people give up their dreams and passions? People change as they grow up, I say carefully. Sometimes they find new interests. Sometimes they just forget what they really liked. I don't want to change, Piper says firmly. I don't want to forget what I like. I'll always love rocks and stories and nature and you, Grandpa. Her words touch me to the core. I hug her, feeling a lump come up in my throat. And I'll always love you, baby, I say softly, no matter what happens. After lunch, we continue our geologic exploration. I show her how to identify minerals by hardness using simple objects. A coin, a nail, glass. She quickly grasps the principles and enthusiastically tests each sample. Grandpa, can we ever go on a real expedition? She asks, writing down the results in the notebook I've given her. To look for rocks together? Sure, I answer, even though I know it's unlikely to happen. Nolan and Heather would never allow it. When you're a little older, I want to be like you, she says, raising her serious eyes to me. A geologist. I want to explore the world, to find the treasures the earth has hidden. My heart overflows with pride and sadness at the same time. I see myself in her, the same passion for knowledge, the same curiosity, the same fire in her eyes. But will she have a chance to follow that passion? Or will Heather and Nolan nip her aspirations in the bud, turning her into the lady they want her to be? A sharp ringing of the phone interrupts our lessons. I know who it is before I even pick it up. Dad, Nolan's voice rings with anger and concern. Is Piper there? Yes, I answer calmly. She came in a few hours ago, soaked and hungry. Why didn't you call right away? He yells. We're going crazy. The nanny called in a panic. The police are already looking for her. I was going to, I said. But I wanted to warm her up first, feed her, and find out what happened. What happened? His voice breaks. What happened is my daughter ran away from home. She stole money from Heather's purse and ran away. Have you ever wondered why she did that? I ask quietly. Pause. I can hear Nolan breathing heavily. Don't you dare lecture me, he says finally. Don't you dare tell me how to raise my daughter. This is all your fault. You're the one who put all the nonsense in her head with your rocks and stories. You're the one who made her naughty. Nolan, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, even though I was seething inside. Piper is not naughty. She's just a kid who wants to be a kid, who's tired of being pressured to be perfect, of being humiliated for the slightest mistake. What did she say to you? His voice is getting dangerously quiet. What stories did she tell you? No stories, I answer. Just the truth about being forced to serve guests, about being sent to her room without dinner for the slightest fault, about being told to watch her figure at 7. Nolan, this isn't normal. It's not parenting, it's cruelty. We're going after her. Now, Nolan cuts the call abruptly and hangs up. I turn to Piper. She's standing in the kitchen doorway, clutching the piece of rose quartz I gave her to her chest. I can see it in her eyes. She heard everything. They're coming for me, aren't they? She asked quietly. I nod, not trying to soften the truth. Yeah, baby, your parents were worried sick. They weren't worried, Piper shakes her head. They were just mad that I disobeyed them. I walk over to her and kneel down so our eyes are level. Listen, Piper, whatever it is, they're your parents. They have the right to take you home. Her eyes are filling with tears. I don't want to go back there, Grandpa. I want to stay with you. Can I? My heart is breaking. More than anything, I wish I could say yes. To take her away, to protect her from cold and cruelty, to give her a childhood full of joy and discovery. But I can't. Legally and in good conscience, I can't. No, baby, you can't do this, I say, trying to keep my voice firm. But I promise you, I'll be there for you. Always. Even if not physically, I'll always be at your side. You promise? Her voice trembles. I swear, I answer earnestly, on a geology hammer. That brings a faint smile to her face, a professional joke that only the two of us understand. Before your parents arrive, Let's get your things together, I say, standing up. And you need a change of clothes. Her clothes are already dry. I hung them over the radiator when she changed. I help her get back into the outfit she came in. Jeans, t-shirt, sweater. She reluctantly takes off my t-shirt she's been wearing all day, and I can see how reluctant she is to part with this symbol of freedom. You can keep that quartz, I say, pointing to the pink stone she's still clutching in her hand. A memento of our day. Her eyes light up. Really? For good? For good, I say. Just hide it well. It'll be our secret. She nods solemnly and tucks the stone into her jeans pocket. At that moment, the doorbell rings sharply, demanding, impatient. Piper flinches, her shoulders tensing. I can see her changing from a carefree child to a tense, frightened little girl before my eyes. I'll get it, I say, trying to stay calm. You pack your backpack. I walk to the door, breathing in and out deeply. I need to stay calm, not give in to my anger, for Piper's sake. I open the door. Nolan and Heather are at the door. Both of them look like they're ready to kill. Nolan is pale with rage, jowls playing on his cheekbones. Heather with cold, calculating anger in her eyes. Where is she? Heather asked demandingly, not even saying hello. Packing, I answered, stepping aside to let them pass. Come on in. They invade my apartment like conquerors sure of their right, ready to crush any resistance. Heather looks around with ill-concealed disdain, assessing the modest furnishings, the old furniture, the shelves of books and rocks. Piper, Nolan calls, and his voice sounds harsh, commanding. She emerges from the room, a small figure with a backpack behind her. Her face is pale, her lips tightly pressed together. She stops in the doorway, not coming any closer. Get over here now, Heather orders. We're going home. Now. Piper doesn't move. Her eyes search my gaze, looking for support. Piper? Heather's voice becomes menacingly quiet. I'm not going to say it twice. Why did you do it? Nolan asks, and I can hear the anger in his voice, but also the confusion. Why did you run away? Piper is silent, her head down. Shukit Tonarm, answer your father, Heather commands. Because you can't see me. Piper answers so quietly we can barely hear her. You only see what you want to make of me, but not me. Heather snorts. What dramatic nonsense. Where did you pick up those phrases? From him? She nods in my direction. No. Piper shakes her head. I think I did. Yeah. I hate being your puppet. I hate serving your guests and being afraid of doing something wrong. I hate it when you yell at me for spilling juice or buttoning a button wrong. I just want to be a kid. Her voice trails off on the last words. Heather and Nolan exchange glances, a mixture of shock and indignation. He's the one who gave you these thoughts, Heather says accusingly, pointing at me. He's turning you against us. No, Piper objected with sudden firmness. Grandpa never said anything bad about you. He just showed me that it was possible to be different, that you don't have to be afraid and pretend all the time. Enough of this talk, Heather said. We're going home. Right now. We'll deal with your behavior there. She takes a step toward Piper, but I step between them. Before you go, I say calmly but firmly, I have something I'd like to say, and you'd better listen. We have nothing to listen to, Heather snapped back. This is all your fault. You and your ridiculous ideas about parenting. Heather's right, says Nolan, backing her up. You've done enough damage already, Dad. Piper needs to go home and forget this whole incident. No, I shake my head. You'll both listen to me, because this is about your child's well-being. And if you really love Piper, you'll take a minute to listen. Something in my tone silences them. Maybe it's the sudden firmness. Maybe the mention of my love for my daughter. Speak, Nolan finally says dryly. But quickly, I look at them. My son and the woman who became his wife. Two people who've turned child rearing into training. Who have forgotten what joy, spontaneity, real life is. You're killing her soul, I say quietly. Day after day, demand after demand, punishment after punishment. You're killing her curiosity, liveliness, sincerity, everything that makes a child a child. It's called parenting, Heather countered. We're preparing her for the real world. No, I shake my head. You're preparing her for life in a cage. You're teaching her to fear mistakes, to hide her feelings, to suppress her desires. That's not training for life. That's training for a life in a golden cage. What do you know about training? Heather throws a scornful hissy fit. You raised a son who didn't know anything about the real world until he met me. Maybe, I agree. I've made mistakes. Maybe I got too caught up in my work and wasn't always there for him. But I never made Nolan afraid of me. Never humiliated him for his mistakes. Never forbade him from being himself. I turned to my son. Nolan, remember when we used to go mineral hunting? How you found your first amethyst and were so proud you stayed up all night? Remember how your mom and I supported all your hobbies? Dinosaurs, space, archaeology? We never told you they were silly. Never forbade you from dreaming. His gaze softens for a moment, as if he's really remembering those times. But then his face stiffens again. It was child's play, he says. I grew up, and I realized that the real world requires other qualities. Like what? I ask. The ability to suppress your true desires? The ability to smile at people you despise? The willingness to sacrifice happiness for status? Don't you dare talk about my husband like that, Heather interjects. Nolan has achieved everything on his own, without your help. I'm proud of my son's accomplishments, I said sincerely, but I'm concerned about the price he's paid. And I'm even more concerned about the price you're making Piper pay. It's none of your business, Heather cuts in. It is my business, I counter, because I love my granddaughter. I love her enough to go against you if I have to protect her. Are you threatening us? Her eyes narrow. No, I shake my head. I'm just telling the truth. Piper is not a doll for your social games. She's a living child with her own desires, her own interests, her own fears. And if you continue to treat her this way, you will lose her. If not physically, then spiritually. We know what's best for our daughter, Nolan intervenes, and we don't need your advice. You do? I'm asking you again. Then why did she run away from you? Why did she choose the risk of traveling across town alone to avoid staying home? They're silent. Heather looks away. Nolan lowers his eyes. For a moment, I think my words have achieved their purpose, that they've awakened some doubt, but it's an illusion. That's enough, Heather says, straightening up. Piper, we're leaving. Now. Piper doesn't move. Her eyes are full of tears, but she also sees determination in them. I don't want to leave, she says quietly. I want to stay with Grandpa. That's out of the question. Heather cuts her off. You're our daughter, and you're coming with us. You're not even listening to me, Piper suddenly shouts, her voice ringing with frustration. You never listen. You never see. I hate this. I hate it. Heather takes a step forward, her hand coming up, and for a moment I think she's going to hit her daughter. I move instinctively, ready to intervene, but Nolan is ahead of me. He grabs his wife's arm, stopping her. Not here, he hisses. Not now. Those words, that gesture, say more than any evidence. They confirm all my fears. In their house, Piper is punished physically. Perhaps not often. Perhaps they call it discipline. But it happens. You hit her, I say, and it's not a question. Heather flares up. We're raising her, she snaps back. Sometimes kids need a firm hand. She's 7 years old, I say, feeling the anger building inside. 7 years old, Heather, and you're hitting her for spilling juice? For being awkward? For acting like a child? Don't you dare judge our parenting techniques, Nolan interjects. You have no right. I have the right to protect my granddaughter, I object, and I'll do it even if I have to go against you. What do you mean? Heather's voice is getting dangerously quiet. If I find out that you continue to treat Piper like this, I will contact Child Protective Services, I say firmly. I'll tell them everything, the way you make a 7-year-old serve guests, the way you punish her for the slightest mistake, the way you deprive her of food, the way you raise your hand to her. Heather paled with rage. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. You'll destroy our family. No, I shake my head. You're the one destroying your family. With your cruelty, your desire for glamour, your disregard for your child's feelings. Dad, Nolan's voice sounds warning. You're crossing the line. No, son, I say calmly. You're the one who's crossing every possible line. And I will not stand by and watch you break Piper. I won't. There is a moment of tense silence. Piper stands slumped against the wall, her eyes wide with fear and hope. Heather glares at me with a look that reads the promise of revenge. Nolan looks confused, as if for the first time he's faced a situation he can't control. "If you go against us," Heather finally says, "you'll never see Piper again. Ever. We'll move to another town, change schools, make sure you can't contact her." "You can't do that," I objected, though her words made me feel cold inside. "We can." Her smile is cold. "And we will if you keep interfering. So decide, do you want to see your granddaughter sometimes on our terms or not at all?" This is blackmail, pure blackmail. And the worst part is, it's working. Because I can't imagine my life without Piper, without being able to see her once in a while, to talk to her, to be there for her. I look at my granddaughter. Her eyes are begging for help, for protection. But what can I do? If I go against her parents, they will take her away, hide her, and I will lose her forever. If I back down, she will remain at their mercy, but at least she will know that she has a grandfather who loves her and is always waiting for her. "I won't go to protective services," I finally say. "Not yet, but I have conditions." "You don't have the right to make conditions," Heather snorts. "Yes," I counter, "because I have proof. Piper told me a lot of things today, and I recorded our conversation. It's a bluff, of course. There are no tapes, but I can tell by the look on their faces that they believe it." "What do you want?" Nolan asks after a pause. "I want to see Piper regularly," I say. "Not every 3 months, but every 2 weeks. And I want her to be able to call me anytime she wants." Heather opens her mouth to object, but Nolan stops her. "Is that it?" he asks. "No." I shake my head. "I want you to stop the physical punishment. I want you to stop making her serve the guests. And I want you to let her be a child play, explore, learn whatever she's interested in." "That's ridiculous," Heather protests. "We're not going to change our parenting methods because of your old-fashioned views." "Then I'll go to Child Protective Services," I said firmly, "and I'll give them all the evidence I have." Another bluff, but they don't know exactly what Piper told me, what evidence I might have. Heather and Nolan exchange glances. I can see the silent conversation in their eyes as they weigh the risks and rewards. "We'll agree to bi-weekly meetings," Nolan finally says, "and Piper can call you within reason. And the rest?" I insist. "We'll, reconsider some aspects of parenting," he says reluctantly. "Sona, but this is our child, and we will raise her as we see fit. It's not a complete victory, but it's a start. At least I'll be able to see Piper, to talk to her, to be an island of safety and understanding for her in the cold world her parents have created." "Okay," I nod. "It's a deal." Heather looks at me with undisguised hatred. "You're going to regret this," she says quietly. "I promise you that." I ignore her threat and turn to Piper. "You need to go with your parents, baby girl," I say softly. "But I'll see you soon, I promise. And you can call me anytime you want to talk." She nods, her eyes still full of tears, but there's a glimmer of hope in them. "Isn't she?" she whispers. "We'll see each other." "Really," I confirm. "Every 2 weeks, and I'll look forward to your calls." "Piper, we're leaving," Heather commands. "Now." The girl takes one last look at me, then slowly walks toward her mother. Her shoulders slump, but her back is straight, a little warrior, ready for another battle. Before she leaves, Piper suddenly turns around and runs to me, hugs me as tightly as she can with her small arms. "I love you, Grandpa," she whispers. "I love you too, baby," I reply, hugging her back. "Always remember, no matter what happens, I'm on your side." Heather tugs her daughter's arm impatiently, pulling her away from me. They walk away. Heather in front, with her back straight and her head up. Piper in the middle with her backpack behind her. Nolan trailing the procession. My son lingers for a moment before leaving, casting me a look that reads a mixture of emotions, rage, confusion, and something else I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe regret? Maybe a glimmer of understanding? I don't know. The door closes and I'm left alone in the silence of the apartment. The table is still covered with the minerals Piper and I studied, the notebook with her jagged, childish handwriting, the cup of tea that's unfinished, traces of our brief, happy day. I walk to the window, watching them get into their car, an expensive SUV, a symbol of status and success. Piper looks back at my windows. I raise my hand in a parting gesture. She does the same before Heather literally pushes her into the car. They drive away and I'm left alone with my thoughts. Today was both a victory and a defeat. I wasn't able to fully protect Piper. I wasn't able to take her away from the parents who are hurting her. But I was able to win the right to see her, to be a part of her life, to be a support and a refuge for her. This is not the end of the struggle. I know that Heather will not forget or forgive my interference. She will look for ways to get revenge, to distance me from my granddaughter, to break our agreement. I must be ready for more battles. But now in this moment, I feel a strange calm. I did everything I could. I didn't back down. I didn't stay silent. I didn't let the fear of loss rob me of my voice. I have fought for my granddaughter, and that fight is just beginning. I pick up a small piece of rock crystal from the table, one of the ones Piper had shown me. She especially admired it, saying it looked like a frozen piece of ice. I clutch it in my palm, feeling the sharp edges, remembering her rapturous gaze. I don't know how the future will turn out. I don't know if Piper will be able to keep her sincerity, her curiosity, her soul in the cold world her parents created. I don't know if I'll be able to protect her from all the blows that life has in store for her, but I know one thing: I will never give up. I will never stop fighting for her. I will never leave her alone in this battle. Piper is like this crystal in my hand, pure, clear, unique. And as a geologist, I know the most beautiful crystals are formed under immense pressure, in darkness and heat. Maybe all these trials will make her stronger, brighter, more amazing. Maybe one day she'll grow up and throw off all the shackles her parents are trying to put on her. And I'll be there for her. I'll be waiting. I'll have faith. I put the crystal on the shelf next to all the other treasures I've collected in my life. But none of them compare to the most important treasure of all: a little girl with intelligent eyes and a brave heart. My granddaughter. My hope. Today I lost the battle but not the war. And as long as I have the strength, I will fight for Piper. I will be her rock, her beacon, her refuge. I will be the one who will always say to her, "You are beautiful just the way you are. Don't change. Don't give up. I'm on your side." This isn't the end. It's just the beginning.